This is your AP Government video on whether the media influences public opinion. When you look at this question on the screen, most of you, your immediate response is going to be yes, of course, the media influences public opinion. But this question can actually be answered both yes and both no. We are going to talk about the various arguments to both of those. So we're going to start with the yes answers. If you believe that the media does affect people's opinions. First of all, the new media and cable news and various internet-based news sites really personalize politics. They make you seem like they're your friend. You start to like these news personalities. And because you like them, you watch their show regularly and you trust the information they're giving you. Because of that, the news that they give you tends to be more believed by you. The media is also a linkage institution. It is a way for people to connect with members of the government and for candidates who are running for office as well. So if you're really trying to find out information about various candidates, the media is where you're going to go. And certainly if you are undecided about candidates, what you read in the media will help you to discern whether you like or dislike them. The media today often stresses short-term outcomes. Most of the stories that they do are, this is happening right now. You need to watch this particular story because it's going to affect your life today. Again, fear-based, emotional-based. This is really important at the moment. It's very rare that they do long-term stories about things that could be consequential 10 or 20 years from now, which is why we don't get a lot of stories on the growing national debt and how it will affect your generation. And the main thing that the media does, and this is probably one of the most important things from this unit, the media does help set the national agenda. News organizations decide what stories to run and air. When they do that, they make you and I think that those particular topics are the most important topics, the most pressing topics to the country right now. And if it's an election year, we now think those are the most important topics to ask the candidates about. And then they, of course, need to come up with a plan. They need to share their plan with people. So if news sites are doing a bunch of stories about climate change and about income inequality, or if they're doing something about immigration or the pandemic, then we start to think that those are the most pressing stories. And that becomes the agenda, even if that's not necessarily true. We're seeing a rise in advocacy journalism because cable-based news and internet-based news have to fill up more space 24/7. Journalists are now advocating for one point of view over all others. So it's becoming less objective. The journalist can, advocate for a particular side of a story or advocate for a person. And it could also be something like a human interest story about this interesting person in your community who's doing something. Sometimes if these are political stories, if the journalist is only advocating for one point of view, it becomes more adversarial. Some people really distrust that point of view, and other people are going to agree wholeheartedly with that. Because the media links you to your government, some people are going to trust the media and trust information. Particularly if you tend to watch the same news channels or tend to watch the same news personalities over and over again, you build a relationship with them that you believe them and you trust their information. So that would mean that those particular people that you trust would make you believe that their information is more true and thus affect your public opinion. Remember, most media companies are for-profit corporations, and this means that they have a profit motive. The profit motive means that they need to make money, which is advertising dollars. So they need to boost the ratings so more and more people watch. How do they do that? They trivialize the news, they sensationalize it, they mix it with entertainment. People would rather see things about sports stars or reality TV stars. They mix in a little bit of Hollywood gossip. And then, of course, they do a bunch of commercials and promos talking about fear and talking about your emotions. And because of that, we're watching more and more news, but we're less and less informed. You can also answer that question no. So this would be people who do not think that the media helps to create public opinion. First of all, most people pay very little attention to government and politics. We have a major problem of people not wanting to vote. And in fact, in the very largest election in our country, only about 55% of people who are eligible vote. In most state and local elections, it's much closer to 15 to 30% of eligible voters. So most people don't really care. In surveys, a lot of times they often, even if they've read something or if they've seen it on TV, they often forget or don't understand what the particular story was talking about, and they don't do any further investigation to find out. A lot of times people have the news on in the background while they're doing other things, cleaning, taking care of kids, cooking dinner. And so they're not really committing their full attention and thought process to what the news is saying. We're seeing a rise of selective attention, not just in the US, but all around the world. This is when people watch news programs that they know they already agree with. So if you have a particular point of view and you see the world through a particular political lens, then you look and you seek out news stories or news personalities online that you believe are giving you trustworthy information. But what that's doing is just giving you confirmation bias. It's not actually widening your critical thinking skills. It's just reiterating what you think is already true, but might not be. We're also seeing a rise in selective perception. This is slightly different. This is when people go out of their way to watch some liberal and conservative news, and they believe that they are looking at a wide variety of news sources, but they still perceive that news through a lens, either a liberal or conservative lens. So when you watch the news sites that you agree with, you think those are good and trustworthy and true. And when you watch the news sites that you disagree with, you assume that's lying and fake news. So they're trying to do the right thing, but they still cannot get rid of their own personal bias. And they're still perceiving certain programs to be right or wrong based upon the political lens in which they're sharing their information. Remember, the media is just one way that we get socialized to our political beliefs. And in fact, on that list we went through, it's pretty low on the list. Other things are far more important at informing you about things that might make up your political ideas. And family was the most important. Education was second. So the media is somewhere like 5th or 6th on that list. And while it might be a place for you to go and educate yourself, if you don't know your opinion, most people already have a political opinion. And to be fair, in most studies, people don't consume media to find out more about politics, candidates, or elections. People watch the news for sports and weather. And the third biggest reason that people have the news on is because they're bored and they have it on in the background so they don't feel so alone when they're in the house by themselves. So most of us are not watching the news in order to broaden our horizons, in order to learn something new, to check out really deep investigations about corruption. Most of us are just confirming things that we perceive to be true.